Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to The Digital Front Door, a podcast series focused on helping the retail community succeed in the age of omni-channel retailing. I'm your host, Scott Benedict, and I'm excited about our topic today and about our special guest. You know, for those of us who have chosen a career in retailing or in some aspect of retailing, many times we are inspired to learn from other members of the community about best practices or great ideas that we can use as inspiration in our own retail businesses or in some aspects of our go-to-market strategy. One of the key learnings I gained from my experience in Walmart's international division is that not all great ideas in retailing emanate from here in the United States. Indeed, you can find examples of retail innovation around the world, and many great ideas that we take for granted in U.S. retailing sometimes begin in other countries. Now, a few years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting Jim Okamura, a partner in Chicago-based retail consulting firm McMillan Doolittle. Jim and I share a passion for retailing broadly and for omni-channel retailing in particular. A few years ago, Jim was kind enough to share with me a copy of Retail Innovations, an annual study of best practices and innovations taken from retail businesses around the world and pulled together into a single document that is updated every year, once a year. As a proud student of retailing, I always look forward to retailing innovations coming out every year. Now, if you fast forward to today, Jim and I are now colleagues at McMillan Doolittle, and the latest edition of Retail Innovations 2024 just came out recently. The team at McMillan Doolittle is sharing this valuable research with the retail community, and Jim Okamura is joining us today to talk about the valuable research he and the firm have pulled together. And welcome, Jim.
Thanks so much, Scott. Really nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
We're happy to have you, and since a lot of our community is based here in Northwest Arkansas and serves the Walmart and Sam's Club business, maybe start by introducing both yourself and tell us a little bit also about McMillan Doolittle.
Sure. So again, my name is Jim Okamura. I'm a partner at McMillan Doolittle. McMillan Doolittle, we describe ourselves as a retail strategy consulting firm. We're a boutique firm where we're not, like a big sprawling organization, but we take a great deal of, pride in as Scott says, being retail students. Yeah. And we've spent, our careers, really looking at how retail evolves. Our focus has always been on how do we help retailers grow. That's something that my particular part of the practice has always focused on the digital side. So a quick, background on me. I've been working in the digital space within the retail for more than 25 years now, which almost startles me. We kind of jokingly say that we were once the young guys, in the digital space. Now we're the kind of the old gray hairs. Certainly over that time, I did the original multi-channel study back in 2000 for the National Retail Federation, and that literally had me like speaking around the world, on this subject of we didn't even have the concept of omni-channel really figured out then. Had I known how long it would take to really kind of get traction and take hold across the retail industry, I may have chosen a different specialty. Certainly happy, that to see what advances we've made and just how much, the digital first thinking, has permeated, retail around the globe. And that's where I think, publications like our Retail Innovations book, now in its 19th year, we've been doing this. It really, you see how much of that digital first mentality is really, omnipresent within, the retail industry.
Indeed it is. And I think one of the things that I find exciting when you first introduced me to retail innovations was the fact that it wasn't a just U.S.-centric or U.S.-only research, but in fact, it leverages off of a relationship that McMillan Doolittle has with another entity, another organization called the Ebeltoft Group, which, as I understand it, is a group of consulting firms from other parts of the world. Can you kind of educate us a little bit about who the Ebeltoft Group is?
Yeah. I've had the pleasure of being a member of the Ebeltoft Group now for over 25 years. The group itself has been around for, I believe this is our 30th anniversary.
Wow.
this year. Ebeltoft in a group is named after the small Danish town that we originally founded this organization. McMillan Doolittle was one of the founding, members. Today we are somewhere north of 20 countries and 20 different retail strategy consulting firms. What started out as, we were once described as a collegial, a group, that liked to get together and swap stories and, compare, how shoppers are changing, how retailers are changing. Well, at a certain point, we decided, as much as we love these biannual get-togethers that we would do usually once in Europe and once somewhere else in the world, we started to really kind of evolve the group into being, much more of a collaborative, forum, for the different members to work together and jointly pursuing, often, multinational, brands and retailers to kind of work with. So we've really kind of seen this, evolve over the years. And, it was always interesting because I was, really, for the longest time, I was the only really digital retail focused, person, within the group. So I had the benefit of being on the receiving end of, so many requests and, collaboration opportunities. It's been a wonderful, place, for me. Now, today, of course, that's very different. All the firms, have deep, digital expertise. And again, that I think that's really reflected. But the Retail Innovations publication has always been a flagship publication of the Ebeltoft Group, and something that, is a year-long process where we start nominating, innovative, ideas, early in the year. Throughout the year, we kind of have a vetting process to really narrow that down and then create the short list, of that you see within, the book, each year. So it's really become, a project and a product, that we're all very, proud of. And I think, trying to get the word out to companies who are always looking at, where's my next wave of growth coming from? How should I be thinking of serving the customer better? How do I think about, being a better community partner and giving back to the community? These are some of the elements that you'll often find, that are common threads woven throughout the years that we've been doing this.
Wow. And you mentioned this is the 19th edition of Retail Innovations that has just come out here in the last few weeks?
That's right. Yeah. Retail Innovations, the 19th, time we did it. The very first, one was edited by our Italian partner, in English. So again, I sometimes might look back to that original one and have a little chuckle over that. But since then, McMillan Doolittle has really taken a lead in a lot of the editing, of this global publication.
Well, that is neat. And as I was pouring through this latest edition, I noticed that you've kind of put the groups of brands and of retailers that are being highlighted into kind of three groupings or three segments. And the first one was focused on a better world, and it's really a focus on sustainability and brands that are leading in the areas of sustainability. The second section was called an enhanced experience, where you're really talking about immersive and exciting retail shopping experiences. And then the third one is titled hyper efficiency, but it's really talking about how easy and convenient omni-channel shopping experiences are at some of the hallmarks of perhaps some of the more innovative retail brands that the team has encountered around the world. Is that kind of your take as well?
Yeah, that's the three different themes, and certainly they're not mutually exclusive, right? So that's where we see a lot of overlap, in each of these themes, but we feel these are very important for any retailer to consider. Where do I play within these? Am I trying to again be competitive, kind of as good as my competition? Or are any of these themes, areas, where, I can truly differentiate, versus, my competition, and really make some smart investments, that's going to be meaningful for my customers. So, these themes, I think, while they have evolved over the years, certainly, we feel like they have, big implications for retailers to really think about their business and what they how they want to position themselves.
Absolutely. I want to zero in maybe a little bit on the omni-channel elements of the report. And as I was reading through, one of the retailers that's highlighted here that I can recall from my Walmart International days was a competitor called Carrefour, the French hypermart firm. And one of the things that is recognized in this book is kind of their commitment to being not only omni-channel, but digital first. I think that's where you and I may have started to hear that term or that phrase a little bit when talking about in the context of Carrefour. If you look at either Carrefour or other retailers around the world that are leading in the area of omni-channel, are there common themes or common aspects of their strategy that you see that kind of reoccur as best practices in terms of omni-channel?
I think you have to read between the lines for what I often think, is some of the, most important common threads. And that to me always comes back to more the internal organization and the acceptance and willingness of the organization to really embrace a digital first mentality. And as you and I have talked about many times, Scott, that's much easier to say as the consultant than it is to do as the retailer. Right. And so while some of the digital tools and technology again may be seen as that often customer facing common threads, to me it's often that behind the scenes of how the retailer is organized. And one of the things that we've often talked about in really a highly efficient integrated organization are things like the promotional cadence. How do we kind of really coordinate that and get everyone kind of rowing in the same direction, right? And we know just how difficult that is. So often the store formats themselves, whether they be physical or digital store formats, those are just the expression of kind of the business model. How the magic to me, I think, is always kind of behind the scenes. And those are things that I think we both have spent a good chunk of our careers kind of
indeed
being evangelists in some cases, but in other cases just trying to say what that means from a practical operational standpoint.
Indeed, and it seems like some of the best examples of innovation in retail is where instead of treating omni-channel as a collection of two separate channels or two separate ways of serving a customer, the best innovators in that area seem to have brought their organization together to where, whether it's marketing, merchandising, operations, using technology to gain efficiency, that they're trying to make those as one kind of integrated go-to-market instead of this approach that you and I have seen over the years where digital and physical is separate silos, separate teams, and the only thing that they seem to have in common is their logo in the URL, and other than that, they seem to operate as separate businesses. It feels like those that are being successful have really started to bring those things together and make them intertwined pieces of the business. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think where you had mentioned Carrefour and the case that's in this year's edition of your Retail Innovations. One of the retailers that we all know that I certainly took note of was IKEA. For example, and I was thinking that over the years of producing Retail Innovations, IKEA probably has the most mentions across all these years. And you really see how they have these 4 innovation centers around the world. In this year's Retail Innovations, we're highlighting 2 urban store formats, one in Spain, one in Denmark. And again, these really are both city concepts with lots of technology, but also lots of community elements that really kind of make the store a destination, while clearly leveraging technology to showcase their broad assortments, and how they're really able to enhance the customer experience through technology, and really the integration of technology and people, of course. But it's really interesting to see global leaders like that, and how they're really trying to reinvent the category and really be a leader in that way.
Well, that's neat. And as you can imagine, I found a little bit of a local element to the updated Retail Innovations, and that was the fact that McMillan Doolittle recognized Walmart Connect, the retail media division of Walmart, with our Innovation Award. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that and why that aspect of Walmart's business really stood out to the team and worthy of recognition for its innovations.
Yeah, retail media, has been I think a fabulous story, across retail. Just the opportunity to really leverage the first-party data that retailers have in this cookieless third-party world that we're facing now, has really provided this opportunities for retailers to really develop their retail media division. The retail media, has been such a high growth, opportunity for most medium to large size, retailers to really, take advantage of their data, but really work closely with, their suppliers, the brands, to who are eager to again, use the right media if it's going to be helping to really convert, customers and drive, new product introduction, for example. I think what's exciting, for us, and why we wanted to recognize, Walmart Connect in this year's, Retail Innovations book is, the retail media networks, to date, have really focused on online, properties. Right. And the store-based, media and displays, are still nascent, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we recognize, that Walmart is really at the forefront of deployment and the refinement of in-store media, and this is really translating into a revenue growth curve that is really eye-catching. Let's say, when I've seen some third-party, forecasters, look at Walmart Connect's, business, and when you think of it growing from a $1 billion to a $5 billion, revenue, business, over a pretty short period of time, 4 or 5 years. I mean, that is very significant money, and as we know, certainly in these tough, macroeconomic headwind times, that kind of, revenue source is highly valued. And can be, high margin, as well. So again, the retailer's really trying to drive, their media, divisions, are really looking to how do we add the in-store, media to really enable that closed loop attribution, that we in the omni-channel space have been, pursuing from day one. I mean, that's what gets us excited, when we start thinking of, okay, we've been talking about this, for years. The retail media is really enabling, this closed loop attribution, that has been, let's just say, very challenging over the years to really execute on.
Right. So if you were to advise either a consumer brand or other retailers, perhaps what are some of the key learnings from Walmart Connect or best practices? It feels like that first-party data and the integration of omnichannel are highlights. Anything else that you would want to kind of leverage or highlight as a best practice that you would share with some of your clients?
Well, I think this really comes back to what makes Walmart successful in the first place. Again, the focus on serving the customer whenever, wherever, and however they choose. And the retail media the division is just going to be part and parcel of that, right? And one of the things that I think is going to be a great outcome as retail media networks mature, and we have to recognize that we really are in early stages, right? So but the relationship between retailer and their suppliers, I think, is going to really strengthen, because ultimately this is around sharing data and insights, and this is something that within the digital space we've always again taken a placed a high priority on. How are we going to really get the most out of the underlying data? Well, that has taken a long time to, I think, permeate across the broad retail landscape. But there's no doubt everyone recognizes that data is all important, and so just that kind of collaboration between retailer and brands, I think, is going to go a really long ways to strengthen those relationships and really, I think, optimize investment on both sides of the fence.
Neat. And I think that's what's always exciting is to about the Retail Innovations book broadly, and particular examples, some of which you've cited, where there's always tidbits of knowledge and best practice that you can pull out of observing others and kind of employ in your business, whether you're a brand or a retailer of any size or any part of the world. You and I had the opportunity recently to attend the annual NRF Big Show, and a lot has been written and said about some of the learnings coming out of that event. Are there any things that in your mind, based on your experience, and I know you've gone to that show a number of times over the years, so maybe it stood out as key learnings or key insights coming out of that show in this year's edition?
Yeah, I think, one of the most encouraging things, I think, from going to the NRF Big Show this year was just the buzz of the show, and it just felt, so much more optimistic, I think, than in NRF Big Shows of recent years, right? And that I think as we talk to many retailers and solution providers over those days, I think the investment in technology, there's a bit of a backlog, a little pent up demand, that I think, over the last, a couple of years, there's been some conservatism in spending, so I think, a lot of companies have had to just back burner, certain projects. Well, I think, it certainly seemed that, a number of these same retailers is saying, yeah, we're moving ahead on the some roadmap elements, that we had to kind of put the brakes on, or something along those lines. So I think, that has obviously a ripple effect, across the industry, but I think, there was just so much more of that glass half full kind of, like a mentality at this year's, NRF. And oh, by the way, one of the other themes that I think, that, we've talked about is the return of the international, retailer at the show. Certainly they were out in force, this year. So since we're talking, global retail innovations here, I think, the really nice to see, again, the large delegations, from Brazil and France and other parts of, Europe. So really exciting to kind of, see just how you realize again, just how we started this, that, retail is there's a lot of innovation happening, around the world. And I think, a lot of these technology stores are playing out. So very, very interesting just to kind of come back from NRF this year and kind of feel energized.
Indeed. And to your point about the global elements, in addition to attendees from other parts of the world, I saw actual expo floor booths or displays from the UK, from France, from Israel. Those are the three that really stood out to me, and it showed a little bit of a more international flavor in terms of who was displaying in the expo space, as well as just who was attending as well. So it kind of corroborates your global element of this, particularly more so as we get further away from the pandemic. Last thing I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit and hear your thoughts on is NRF and what's happening in Omni-Channel are all about the future and where the business is headed. And if you, based on your history and your perspective and having been exposed to retail from around the world, what should brands and retailers really do right now, this year, maybe going forward, to prepare themselves for the future? What are a few things that maybe you would suggest they focus on?
It seems, unusual to kind of lead with this, but even as, we're now 25 plus years into the, digital retail journey, a lot of it is still moving away from, the channel, mentality, to really, this customer first, approach that, as we know and have said for years, the customer doesn't, recognize, channels. They just see, the brand, the retailer's, brand, and it has very high expectations, on how they want to be served. And yet, as we kind of alluded to earlier, that's much easier to say than it is, to do in terms of, moving away from that channel mentality. I think the coordination, that's required, across different, often functional level teams, within, the retailer is really key. And then so hence that's where I think the people and processes, has been, such a focus, over the years. I think we've often, seen where retailers have perhaps changed their business strategy, but have not changed, their organization structure, process, and often the key has been the metrics and KPIs, right? I think I've spent a good chunk of my career kind of evangelizing, how the metrics you really need to kind of change, and also you can't expect those new processes and metrics to really take hold, right away, right? A lot of it is, it takes practice. It takes getting through many, seasons, buying and selling, to really, refine, some of those internal communications. And, these are things that, we know today that some of the leaders, who we would think of as, omni-channel leaders, I think are separating themselves, from the pack. Right. Because, they have, taken these steps, internally to really kind of embrace this new thinking. While others are kind of looking at it as more of an incremental kind of approach, and often frustrated with where the plan isn't doing what they hoped it would do.
Right. So it occurs to me one follow-up I want to ask you before we part, and that is that if a leader at any level, director, VP, even up to the CEO, if they grew up in legacy physical retail and now they have purview over this combined, integrated, omni-channel entity, do you find that many of them have embraced and have invested in their own skill set in understanding digital, or is that still maybe an area of opportunity in some organizations?
I certainly feel that it starts, at that around the senior executives table, and that there's always a need to stay current. There's always going to be, hate to say a weakest link. We, in a lot of the consulting work we've done, I often focus on, who's the biggest skeptic around, the CEO's table. Yes. And how do they need to really kind of understand and really accept, how these changes, need to happen. And I think, then that in turn translates, down to, as it pushes down through each of those, leaders' respective organizations, right? I think that's the other thing that we've seen. Sometimes, the acceptance around the CEO's table has been strong, but as you get into the director and manager levels, it hasn't been communicated as well to them. Like, not just why they should be kind of changing their behavior, but again, what's in it for them, and how is this going to benefit them? How is this going to benefit the customer? So yeah, these are the things that we often think there's a need to have those almost internal road shows, internal PR shows to really promote both successes and challenges, right? That as we try to go into these refinement loops. So yeah, it's something that even you and I know this ourselves. Trying to stay current on what's the latest is a job unto itself. So yeah, the learning certainly never stops.
Indeed, and I'll tell you, and I think you're a similar perspective. That's part of what I've enjoyed about a career in retailing is it is always changing. It is always moving fast, and ways of serving the customer are certainly always evolving. So, Jim, I'm so thankful for your insights and for sharing the new Retail Innovations 2024 with our community. For the benefit of our audience, if you're interested in learning more about Retail Innovations 2024 or downloading a free copy for your team, and it's a lot of great information for free, you can visit McMillan Doolittle's website at the URL that's on your screen, and certainly a great opportunity to learn more. And you can even see prior years' versions of Retail Innovations as well. So, Jim, again, thank you for joining us today. And to our audience, thank you for joining us today. And we will see you next time on the Digital Front Door.